I am shit at reading. I'm not sure if it is the modern world that has robbed me of my ability to focus, or whether it's just that I've never been particularly academic. I mean, I can read, but I really struggle to get through books. It takes me months, years even sometimes to get through a book. And generally what I've found is the best way that I tend to absorb knowledge is through video content. That said, I have now been freelance for coming on to 7 months. And one of the things which I've noticed since being freelance is that I really miss the healthy discussions that used to take place when I was working within a team at an agency. And often I found that was a great source of knowledge. You know, you're having a conversation in the office and someone mentions a blog that's helpful, or a YouTube channel, or a podcast, or a book that can send you down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and you know, you discover new things, new skills and knowledge, industry knowledge, personal development knowledge, that sort of thing. And then suddenly, now I've been freelance, suddenly I'm very isolated. I knew that this was going to be the case, and when I went freelance, I kind of made a pledge to myself that I was going to really have to make sure that I was making the time to invest in my self-development. And one of the things I said to myself is I must read more. The thing is, I just really struggle with it. And that was until recently. I went on holiday and kind of stumbled across this approach. And once I stumbled across it, I found it incredibly effective. But I can't take credit for the idea. It turns out, after doing it and seeing the benefit of it, I then realized it's actually a well-established thing that people are doing. It's already got a name, and the name is active reading. And that's what this video is about. I want to talk to you about how I found active reading and how I approach active reading. And if you've not heard of active reading, then maybe it's something that could help you the same way it's helped me to ingest books in a meaningful way and at speed, essentially. What active reading is where you read a book, and that could be hard copy, real book, or it could be using a Kindle, which is the way that I've been doing it. And at the same time as reading the book, you listen to the audiobook version. The way that I kind of discovered this, and again, I discovered it for myself. I didn't discover the thing. It's already a well-established thing that people are doing. I wanted to grab some books for a holiday that I went on last summer, and I picked up a couple of books. And once I started to look at the price of these books, it was about 70 quid's worth of books, 3 books, nice books, admittedly, but I was amazed at the price. So at that moment, I decided that instead of getting the books, I'd go and buy a Kindle. And that's what I did. And to begin with, I thought that a Kindle was going to be the solution to helping me read and enjoy reading more. And yeah, that didn't work though, because essentially a Kindle is the same as a book, right? But yeah, I bought the Kindle and I bought the books, and I thought, you know what, instead of spending the money on real books, investing in a Kindle would be a nicer way to encourage me to read more. Being a bit of a tech nerd, you know, I trying to use tech to entice me into reading, essentially. Very quickly on the holiday, I was having exactly the same thing with the Kindle, which I have with all books, which is when I'm reading, I find it very tiring. Maybe it's my eyesight, maybe it's just the cognitive load of both interpreting and reading the words and trying to sort of digest the knowledge within the words themselves, if that makes sense. I find I read a couple of pages of a book and I'm suddenly like, I'm tired. So that didn't work. So I then thought, I'm going to abandon this idea of reading on holiday. I'll try the audiobook. So I downloaded the audiobook of the same book that I'd started reading, and I was listening to the audiobook. Now, the problem that I have with audiobooks, and sometimes podcasts as well, is I struggle with the focus. I've struggled to maintain my focus on a podcast or an audiobook. So I'll start listening and I'll be like, this is interesting, you know, this is great. And then the next thing, my mind will start to wander. The next thing I know, I'm sort of checking back in with the book and thinking, wait a minute, what did they just say? What have I been thinking about? I've obviously not been paying attention. And then suddenly I'm sort of trying to rewind and work out where I stopped paying attention and stuff like that. Audiobooks and podcasts do work quite well when I'm driving, as a side note. I think something is occupying my mind. Maybe that's why this active reading thing is working for me. But yeah, the problem with books is I find it tiring and not particularly enjoyable to read. Audiobooks, great, but I seem to lose focus and get easily distracted, which means I'm not paying full attention and also not digesting the knowledge which is being shared in the books. This is when I was on holiday and I decided to put my AirPods in, put the audiobook on my phone and have the Kindle with the words in front of me. So I'm not having to use energy in the same way to fully read the book. I am listening to the book, I'm having it fed to me, but having the book in front of me keeps me focused, and just following the words along somehow keeps me engaged in the process. And because less of my energy is going on interpreting the words, because it's being fed directly into my ears, I am then free to focus on digesting the knowledge and actually learning from whatever the books are. And I keep saying knowledge because mostly I like to read, a lot of self-help books, self-improvement, self-development, business skills, photography skills, those kind of things. I occasionally will be interested in a biography of the right people, but generally I'm looking at the way I read is generally to enhance my knowledge. So this was like a game-changing moment. I actually had Atomic Habits, quite a well-known book. If you haven't checked it out, I strongly recommend you do, because it is a really good read. I kind of struggled with the audiobook, kind of struggled with the Kindle, put them both together, active reading as I now know it to be called, and just had this most amazing experience. I absolutely annihilated that book in 2 days. Admittedly, I was on holiday at the time, so I did have a lot of downtime to enjoy the book, lying on a sun lounger, earphones in, Kindle in front of me. And this has just been revolutionary for me. It's just such an amazing way to digest information for me and ticks a lot of boxes. So once I got back from holiday, I looked into this more. This is where I realized this is a well-known thing. It's called active reading, where you listen and read at the same time. The way that I'd been doing it was I was using Audible for the audiobook, Kindle for the Kindle edition of the book, buying them separately. Yes, there is a cost implication, but in most of the examples I've seen, the Kindle version of a book and the audiobook combined is still often cheaper than buying the hardback version of the book itself. Yes, there is a cost implication, but if I buy a book and don't read it, then I've wasted my money. So at least with this cost, at least I'm actually getting the information out of it. So, I don't mind. And also, I seem to always be juggling some sort of Audible 3 months at a discount or Kindle Unlimited. So often you're not paying full price for these things anyway, so it's worked quite well. And also, I think if you've got the latest, fanciest, latest and greatest Kindle, I think it's the Paperlike, or you're using an iPad and the Kindle app, then you can actually do active reading within those apps, and it will, like an old school karaoke machine, highlight the words as they're spoken, which adds another level. Now, I wasn't doing it like that. I was just listening on my phone and following along on the Kindle, and I found that worked quite well for me personally. So yeah, that is active reading. It's been a complete change to the way that I enjoy reading. And whilst there is part of me that's a bit like, what's wrong with me that I'm incapable of just reading a book without some sort of elaborate system to make it happen for me, I kind of get over that pretty quickly when I get a book that I enjoy and I digest it in a meaningful way and take something away from it. And that is something which for years I've bought books with the best intentions and not really been able to embrace reading in the way that I would like to. So active reading for me has been great. So I hope that is helpful to you. Now, this video is quite different to what I normally talk about. I'm normally obviously talking about cameras and gear and filmmaking and photography. Now that I'm freelance, I'm wanting to share more about that journey of being freelance. And obviously to me, this is kind of really close to my heart, because ensuring that I still am focused on expanding my knowledge and my self-development, even though I am now this sort of silo, this isolated individual doing my thing and not in a team environment where I've got colleagues to kind of bounce off and stuff like that. So you can maybe expect more of this sort of thing on the channel in the future. I'd really appreciate your thoughts on what you think about this style of content and on active reading in general. I hope you found that helpful. And other than that, I'll see you next time.